In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. This is Hadi TV. Our viewers all know that in the previous session, our topic was about the sex education in Islamic society. We talked about it and we come to this point that there is a problem in Islamic societies. In Islamic societies, the custom, or we can say the culture of that society, is mixed and mingled with the Islamic principles. And this is the problem. And Dr. Merghati Khoui is here again, and we asked her about this problem. And she said that she has a solution for this problem, and so many researchers based on this in Islamic societies.
Hello to viewers, and thank you very much again for inviting me for this program. And as you mentioned, sex education is one of the main points it's an issue in Islamic societies, specifically in Islamic contexts, in countries which is following Islam mainly. Actually, it is a problem again for Muslim families, those who are living in Western societies too. But as you know, sex education is a well-known program and curricula in schools and Western societies. But most of the countries who are involved and who are dealing with Muslim families, they have so many problems in dealing with this curricula, sex education curriculum. But what I want to talk is specifically about countries or Islamic context, which is basically Islamic countries. You're absolutely right. There is a big problem in terms of mixture of customs and traditions with main principles in Islam. And families, basically, most of the families mix these customs and practices as Islamic principles. You can see in different countries, for example, female genital mutilation or sort of things. But this is not our discussion actually today, but it's just specifically educating children about sexuality-related matters. But as you said, from my point of view, the solution is I can give you actually an example from my own work. During last year, I designed a project, and with a team, I started to do this project, and I'm very happy to be able to start this project. It's about sex education curriculum.
And we are very happy that a Muslim woman do it, you know?
Oh, thank you. And this is about sex education curriculum and puberty, actually, reproductive and sexual health curriculum, say. It's a very big project, and I cannot actually call it national based, but it is it's started in a very big city. What I would like to mention is that we've got three actually point or three main parties to involve in sex education curriculum. We have to be careful, and we have to take these three parties into consideration when we are designing any sort of project concerning sex education. The first of all is families, parents. We need to teach them at the beginning and try to change their attitude and try to empower them to investigate and clarify or to separate their own customs and traditions from Islamic principles. So that's our job, to teach them how to do this separation and get their agreement. If we cannot actually get their consent to participate in this curriculum, to developing in this curriculum, we're not going anywhere. So because they are living with their children, and that's their right to direct their children in the way they want.
So the main learners of this field are the parents.
Basically, yes. That's my project has started from parents,
Uh-huh.
and we started to convince them and to teach them Islamic principles in one side, and the traditions and customs from their own perspective, and see what sort of customs they're following and what sort of traditions and cultures they're practicing at home sometimes and at school, in terms of sexual related matters. For example, started from puberty maybe, and they have so many questions about the age of before puberty, and they don't know what should they do. I can give you an example about the self-stimulation of little children, like their boys and their girls. They are just 3 years old, and they are started to stimulate themselves, and they don't know what should they do, and they're so confused, and they don't. They have no idea, even though they are Muslims, and they have no idea there is a beautiful guideline in Islamic materials how to handle this issue. I'm not saying this problem because it's not a problem, but they take this as a problem. This is an example. And the second party is teachers. Our teachers in Islamic countries must be aware of all sexual related matters, because they, from my point of view, they still, most of the teachers are parents at the beginning. You know, they've got their own children, and they're bringing their own cultures and perspectives into their schools. So they are dealing with your children, my children, not as a teacher, but as a parents, with parental mindset. So we need to get their consent and agreement and their partnership. So this is two parties. The third party is policymakers. We need to work on the policymakers and revise or reform the health system in terms of bringing into the sex education curriculum. I call it the very reflexive partnership between us as a researcher and practitioners, and parents, teachers, and policymakers. So this is the way in this project I designed to start from parents first of all, because we don't have, I believe, as a practitioner or researcher, I don't have any right to conflict with any family's culture without getting their consent and without knowing their own perspective and without knowing what theory they are following to educate their children within the family structure. That was very, very helpful to have meetings and discussions with parents. They were so happy to hear the new things about sexuality of their own children, the facts, and the normal. They could empower themselves, because it was this project is basically very, very community-based project. So they were happy to learn, and they were happy to practice what they learn at home. And in the end, we came to sort of power between mothers specifically. And they came to me all the time and learned as much as they can. So that was a good start, and now we're in the middle of this project. And I'm very happy because I can see improvement, I can see community empowerment, and they can find their own way to make this clarification and to separate this mixture with Islamic principles.
So you mean if we try, we can find our ways among this mixture of Islamic principles, perspectives, and custom?
Of course, yes, because we as a Muslims people, we are doing exactly what the non-Muslims do. So we are not coming from alien. We
Yes,
are human being,
yeah.
and they're so smart, intelligent. What the problem is, they are not informed. They are not informed correctly. And I'm not blaming anyone. I'm not blaming any families because they are practicing their own customs, which should not be ignored, should not be undermined, because some of the customs are there is related to their dignity. We cannot really separate them from their own
Or
dignity.
cross them out, yeah.
But the things we can empower them to realize themselves and see what is good for their children, what is bad for their children, and how to separate these customs from the Islamic guidelines. That's what we can do.
And to make a pure Islam, maybe pure Muslims or pure
Yes, it is.
Islamic
Yeah,
principles.
I think so. Yeah. I'm happy if there is any
Yes,
more questions.
this is the sixth principle or concept in those. I think it was because it was for the last
yes.
session.
Yeah, I can remember.
Yes.
In previous session, we were
Yeah,
talking
there were
about the
six
guideline,
concepts.
right?
Yeah. But we just talked about the sixth one because it was your specialty.
That's true.
But what
yeah.
about the other five?
Yes, in the guideline I mentioned in last session, it was it was inspiring. Tell you the truth, from reported by WHO. The concepts I was comparing with different verses in Quran, and I find these concepts very similar, and we can use these concepts as a basic for our sex education too. There is no confliction, no difference. For example, one of the concepts, the human development. What's wrong with that if we teach our children in Islamic society about human development? Because the basic statement is human development is categorized by the interrelationship between physical, emotional, social, and intellectual growth. This is a very broad statement. Now, we can bring our own statements, our own curriculum, with our own codes, ethical codes, morality, and whatever, into these statements. There is no problem. The second concept is relationships. Again, the relationships, as I mentioned before, it's very important for every single person around the world. That's the point. But the point is that in Islam, it's emphasized more and more on and on in Quran and Sunnah. For example, if we go back to Prophet, peace be upon him, period of time, you can see that those days, Muslim men and women were never too shy to ask him, and they always keep communicating with Prophet about all affairs, and including such private affairs as a sexual life. And women specifically were going on and on to Prophet, asking about their own relationships and how they can improve their own relationship with their husbands, and so as to know the teachings and ruling of their religions concerning the sexually related matters. So if we go back to that time, but we can learn more
Yes.
about the importance of relationships. This concept also in guideline is in line with our beliefs, Islamic beliefs, is relationships play a central role throughout our lives. That's true, no confliction, because we have to learn how to relate to each other, but in different levels. We are not teaching to our 3 to 5 years old little girl.
This is the discussion about the age. I think.
Yes, the level of, although in Quran, it's clear that the knowing about the facts, knowing about the concepts is not age specific. But as I mentioned, I think in previous sessions, Quran is a pattern, giving us very good pattern. But that's us as a specialist. We can bring these theories and patterns into practice.
Yes.
So it's not age specific, but when we're talking about relationships, we have to be careful which age we are teaching this sort of relationships. That's why this guidelines is called comprehensive, appropriate to age, appropriate to development and growth of a child. For example, when we're talking about relationships for 3 to 5 years old boy or girls, we're not talking about the romantic relationships. We're talking about relationship between two little girls and relationship between this little girls and her parents and caregivers, for example. If we go to the second level, like the child, say 8 years old, 5 to 8 years old, we're talking about different aspects of relationships. We're not teaching them sexual action. So we have to be careful. In Islamic societies, I can see this mixture again and this problem again, that when we're talking about sex education, straight away they go to the point that we are going to teach their children sexual actions. It's not true. Again, exactly like the guidelines, practical guideline existed in the world, in the very valuable sites such as WHO, UNFPA, and so on. We're not going to teach our children something extra. We are going to bring these guidelines from the world into Islamic framework and attach our Islamic codes and morality, sexual moralities into this guideline. Or I created my own words to Islamicize these guidelines and to teach our children. But I believe that your session is going to
be continued. You just mentioned number 4 and 5, and then we continue the sex
I'm
education.
not explaining, just
Thank you very much.
The another concept is personal skills, and the fourth one is sexual behaviors. 5 is sexual health. You know that the Quran and Hadith everywhere, God is concerned the creature's health and asking you to keep yourself as healthy as possible. So the last one is, as I mentioned before, society and culture.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Merghati. It was very helpful. And thank you very much to follow us.
Thank you.
Thank you.